The next module we're going to be working with is Resolv Equipment Rental. And Resolv Equipment Rental is for businesses that have inventory or assets that they rent out to their customers. Usually to be paid, it can be for free, but usually it's a rental business that's doing rental revenue generation. And so it could be the same parts that they sell. They could sell and rent, some of their equipment. But ultimately, when we have a rental fleet, the idea behind it is that we want to be able to track the collection of revenue, usually recurring, and as well as the inventory status coming in and out of the assets that are on rent, who's got what, being able to kind of work through that process. So a big way that this works is that we have some flexibility in how we want to be able to rent, because in our configuration, you'll see that we have 3 different warehouses. The first warehouse is going to be a rented warehouse. And what's going to happen is that any item that we rent, we don't want to sell and have it deduct our inventory and go to cost of goods sold or anything else like that. Instead, we want to be able to know that it's out in rent and that it still belongs to us. So we're actually going to be transferring inventory. You can stock your rental fleet in an unlimited number of warehouses, just like you would inside of SAP for anything else that you're holding stock of. But when it goes on rent, we're going to be transferring that into this rented warehouse location so that we know that it's not physically in our possession. We're still keeping track of now who has it on a rental contract, which is a sales order basis in our system, so we know exactly who has it, which customer was shipped to, when they received it, what quantity they have, what serial number or batch number they have. But as far as SAP is concerned, it's going to be in this warehouse. We also have a billing warehouse that's going to be used so that we can actually link all of the invoices directly to the sales document. So things like relationship map works and all of that. So we have the ability to have an unlimited number of invoices linked to that baseline using the billing warehouse. And then an interesting one is this re-rent. So the concept of re-rent is where perhaps you are a general contractor and you're supplying equipment to a job site, and amongst the different things that you need to supply, the customer also asks for, let's say they ask for generators and they ask for some moving equipment, and and maybe you also get asked for radio communications and lights, and you don't actually supply any of the radio communications. So in that particular case, what might happen is that in order to get the job, you might need to supply all that material. So you might need to supply all that material. So what you do is you go and you find a friendly competitor or another supplier will rent you that equipment, and then you will in turn actually re-rent it out to your customer, usually for a spread, a markup, not always. You can have it be a cost, but the idea is that we want to track that we've rented equipment from somebody else and that we've given that equipment to our customer so that we can track it coming in and out, and the purchase order, and being able to pay for it and aligning the revenue with the expenses. Now, in some cases, we are going to have open-ended rentals. So we can choose to allow mandatory, to make mandatory or not the end date. So if you think about like a car rental, it might be something you're familiar with, you usually specify when you're going to bring it back. You don't just say, I'm going to rent this car and then bring it back whenever you want. They want to know when it's coming back, and you've got pricing based on that. But there are lots of things where you're talking about like a construction site where you actually want the piece of equipment to be rented for years, or an office. Somebody is renting a trailer to be out in the field, or something else along those lines. And we want that to be on rent as much as possible. It's to our interest to be able to do that. So we can have situations where certain customers and their industries don't request a return date, and so you can choose to make that rental have a mandatory or non-mandatory rental date. Now, the next thing here you'll see up here is the ability to choose what document we're going to actually do our billing on. So you can actually have our billing go to a delivery inside of SAP Business One, which is useful because the delivery can be used as a base document to generate invoices. So you can consolidate multiple deliveries onto an invoice, or you can use a tool like a credit card processing tool, that is used inside of SAP Business One to actually charge customers credit cards. You can do that by converting that through Document Generation Wizard, or through a third-party tool, or a tax tool, or something else along those lines that will take your deliveries and convert them to invoices. If you don't have any reason to do that, you can also go directly to an invoice. So we can go from sales order to invoice, and that way the billing document is actually created and posted directly for revenue recognition and collections, AR, and all of those kinds of things. Now, the next thing that's going to wind up happening is that we're going to want to be able to define a billing cycle. And a billing cycle is going to control how we charge our customer for these rentals. And so as we want to be able to rent, it's very common to be able to rent on a per calendar basis, meaning that if I put something on rent, today is May 13th, so I would then want to be able to bill again on June 13th, and July 13th, and so on and so forth. And so you can come in here and do it based on the calendar anniversary of when we put something on rent. The system is intelligent enough to automatically adjust. So if you put something on rent on May 31st, then it will actually bill again on June 30th. And then if we get to February, it'll be February 28th, and so on and so forth. So we'll automatically adjust to the last day of the month if the anniversary date is not in that month. So again, 28, 29, 30, sorry, 29, 30, 31 are days that potentially could or could not exist based on when we put something on rent, and it will adjust automatically to be able to hit those dates. But another popular choice is to be able to come in here and specify a number of days that we want to be able to create a month. So common is 30 for 30-day months. You'll also see 28 for 28-day months. Again, the advantage of a 28-day month, an exact 4-week billing, is that you actually get an extra week's worth of billing into the 52-week year. So you get an extra cycle, an extra process by using 4-week billing periods instead of 30-day billing periods, and that can create an extra month's worth of revenue. So as we do this, you have the ability to go through and use automated invoicing on returns. So as soon as something comes back, we're going to do a final invoice of exactly whatever any kind of difference is, and we'll do a proration. Now, there's two different types of billing. We can bill in advance, meaning that we're going to bill on the first day of the rental for the period that's about to happen. Or we can bill afterwards. So instead of doing an immediate invoice, we're going to wait until 30 days have passed or 28 days have passed, and then be able to generate a bill for what's actually occurred. Okay. Now, if you are billing afterwards, we're going to have a proration. And if something gets returned in the middle of a period, we're going to need to calculate how much we should bill for. And again, you'll see that I have the ability to use this calculation tab where I'm able to specify the number of days that have occurred in the period. And then based on that, I can bill based on a billable rate that is based on that. So for instance, if somebody returns something 4 days into the billing period, I would charge 4 times the daily rate. Whereas if I contrast that to day 17, I'm going to charge 2 times the weekly rate plus 3 times the daily rate. And of course, this is completely flexible. We can create as many billing cycles as we want. And so, for example, here's another one that I call 28-day modified, where if I bill on day 4, again, you can see it's just 4 times the daily rate. But now if I bill on day 17, it's going to be 1 times the monthly rate, because you can see that as soon as I've passed the halfway mark, I'm now charging a full month. So again, you have a lot of flexibility into how you want to be able to create your prorations. You can create different prorations for different customers and different contracts. Even at the row level, we can choose how we want to be able to handle prorations. If you are billing in advance, what it will do is we'll also use this to be able to calculate whether or not we should credit the customer back or not credit the customer back based on whether or not the amount that's been invoiced is greater or less than what's calculated as the billable charge. So again, the way all of this comes together is that you'll be able to basically set up your item master inside of SAP Business One to indicate that something is a rental item. So we'll be able to come into the item master data here, and I'm just going to look up my rental part numbers, but really it could be anything. And as I'm looking at this this rental part number here, you can see this particular one happens to be managed by serial number. It's not required to be managed by serial number. It could be batch managed. It could be unmanaged. Any of those are fine. But you'll notice here, the main thing that makes it a rental item is this flag here. So we changed this flag from rental item no to rental item yes, and that's what tells SAP Business One that we have rental items. As you can see, for the inventory data, we still have support for all the different warehouses. So you can see this is currently sitting in both Richmond and in Toronto. We're supporting bin management. So again, this one also has serial management, and we'll be able to keep track of all of the quantity that is in any of these different locations using all the standard SAP inventory functionality. And then as you go into your serial number list, you'll be able to also, if you need to, link one of your serial numbers into a fixed asset. So if it is linked to a fixed asset record, you can see, again, you've got that link, and it will go into the fixed asset master, and we can use that for any kind of depreciation that might be associated with the asset that's going to be based off of it. So again, you have the link between the fixed asset and your rental item that we're using for the inventory movement as we go through the process and bill the customer. So the rental is available on either rental orders or rental quotations. So in this particular case, if we're doing a rental quotation, I can come in here and choose my customer and then be able to go into the rental tab. And on the rental tab, I can come in here and just specify, for instance, the rental start date. That automatically identifies it as a rental product. It's identified which billing cycle I want to be able to use. So in this case, every 4 weeks. But again, you can see those other choices we talked about are there. All of those were configurable. Which warehouse I'm going to be pulling the inventory from by default. Okay, and in this case, I'm leaving the rental end date empty. And then as I come in here and I select my product, I can come in here and choose one of the rental items. So in this particular case, I'm going to choose a brass instrument here. And then as I choose the the value in here, you can see it's giving me the quantity that I'm going to be renting. So I can come in here and I could rent, 2 of them. You'll see here it automatically knew that it was a rental, but I could also re-rent it from a different supplier, as we talked about. I can also sell an item depending on whether or not I'm allowed to sell rental items or not. I can sell an item on the same quotation, which will be useful for consumable items, and we'll see that in just a moment. Now in the unit price here, you can see this is actually being a rental per month, and month being in this case defined as 4 weeks. So here you can see my unit of measure code for that. But if I double click on the unit price, you'll see that I can also get a weekly price and a daily price, and I can modify that in here. So if I wanted to negotiate with my customer and make this $15.25 per week in case they get an override, or $2.75 per day, or something else along those lines, I can add that. You'll notice that I also wind up with a history button here. So if I wound up changing the price over time, if I have a more appropriate on a rental order, but if I have a long-term order that's going to be open and we change the price, we can actually plan an effective from and to date and be able to see the history, as well as changing a date as we go through that process. But basically, you'll see in here we have the ability to come in and do the rental. If I just come in here and pick some consumable items, so we're going to go ahead and rent whatever these 2 printers. You'll see that not rent, sell these 2 printers. You can see it automatically knew that we were selling and that there's no rental quantity that's associated with it. So again, you can have your rental quantity and your sell quantity right next to each other with the form settings. And then as we come back, we can also come in here and rent additional products. Now you can have rental kits. So if I wind up with a rental kit, what will wind up happening is that it will be a group of different products that get grouped together. But in any case, if I wanted to, I can also come in here and grab multiple products at the same time. All of that functionality is still fine. And again, you can see the rental quantity. Now, what's useful about this is that you can also right-click and go into rental items. And if I go into rental items, particularly if this was a large document, what's useful is that it's going to suppress any of the lines that are not rental items. So you can see there's actually 5 line items on this document, but here you can see it's just showing me lines 1, 4, and 5. But I have the ability to come in here and manipulate the different values. So if I wanted to change this one to be billed every calendar month, I have the ability to come in here and change that. I can also change the rental quantity. So you can come in here and update that and be able to get your rental totals, and then be able to update this. And it will come through and it will change the document as well. So you can see kind of our rental total and our rental prices. So that's really basically the the flow for entering in a rental document is identical for entering it on a rental sales order. But then again, you'll be able to use the scanner to actually scan out the rental. So what winds up happening is here we can take a look at our warehouse management system, and you'll see that we do have an equipment rental tile. This is included even if you're not using warehouse management, you'll be able to rent. So if you're only using rental, we still include the rental mobile, and you'll see that we have the ability to go out and pick the items that need to be put on rent. It will allow us to see the different pick lists using standard SAP pick lists. Again, if you're interested, you can also use advanced allocations to automatically create the pick lists instead of using the pick, pack, and production manager. So we can pick, and as you can see, it will bring up a list of what we need to pick and where we need to pick it from. So again, you can see the item and the bin description. Now, what's nice about this is that we do support form settings. I'll come into this later, but if I wanted to be able to see the description, of this product, I can move it, closer to the front next to the bin, or, whatever it is that I want. So you can see item A in the rental, and all those kinds of things. So you can control your forms. We'll get more to this in the warehouse management piece, but basically as I come in and I'm selecting this, you can see I'm able to scan, the bin that I'm coming from, the quantity, and if it was serialized, it would prompt me for the serial, but in this particular case, it's not serialized, so it's just going to be done, and then I can press finish, and then this is going to update the system that we've actually picked, and then put this item on rent. Now what it's going to do is it's going to make an inventory transfer again from warehouse 1 out into the warehouse 90, and it will also start the process of being able to bill the customer. So that's really all we need to be able to do to put something on rent. And then also we have the ability to do the return. So I can return by serial number. If I do have a serialized product, that's going to allow me to come in and scan or select the serial number. And then as I select the serial number, I can specify which bin I'm putting it away into. So I'm going to put it into bin 1 here. And as I hit add, it automatically found the serial number, what product it was on, what sales order it was linked to. So we can see this product was rented to SAP Hudson Yards. So you can just use your asset tags or your asset identifiers to be able to receive, product back in. And then again, same kind of concept, you press finish and it will actually record the inventory back in, taking it from your rented warehouse and bringing it back into, in this particular case, warehouse 1. And then the other choice that you have is that you can actually pre-plan a rental return. So in this particular case, you're able to make a rental return document, which I'll come back in and show. And then that will tell us what products we're expecting to receive back in. So these are the products that we're expecting to receive back in. And again, that comes from inside of SAP Business One, where if we're looking at the equipment rental menu, you can see I can build a rental return request. And a rental return request is extremely easy to build. You basically just come in here and choose the customer that is going to return something. You can then do your copy from. And it will show you a list of the different items and rental contracts that are outstanding. You have the ability to come in here and check off what you want to return and hit choose, which will ultimately bring in the document that you hit add. So that's it for being able to create a rental return. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Besides the rental return documents, you'll see there's a couple of other documents here as well. There's an exchange request. An exchange request would be if a product failed on the job site and you needed to just exchange it with another. You can actually do an advanced ship where we send them a product in advance of getting it back. You can do an on-the-field swap, or you can have them send you something back, and then we can send them a replacement, depending on what your model is going to be. And again, what's useful about this is that it's keeping a record of this. So on the rental agreement, when we're looking at the quantities that are outstanding, it will keep track of any quantity that we have outstanding. So here you can see like this Motorola kit. If I choose it, it's actually going to create 2 lines, one going from my stocking warehouse out back to the customer, and a different one coming from the rented house and bringing it back in. So this allows us to be able to work with these lines independently, kind of in any sequence we want. And then again, that's going to actually show up in this particular case, both as a rental return for the product that we're expecting back, as well as for a pick list for us to be able to send out the replacement. The third thing that's really in the mobile that's quite useful is the rental calendar. So the rental calendar allows me to be able to go work, and I can do it by, let's say I want to take a look at the rental fleet, for example, and it's telling me in the rental fleet that there are 11 items in this group. Shows me how many are in stock or rented or returned. I can actually drill into this to be able to see the details. So these are all the different ones that are rented. I can drill into the order to be able to see the details for that particular brass instrument, and again be able to see who's supposed to return it and so on and so forth. So the rental calendar is automatically maintained. You can see I'm looking at it at the week level, but I could look at it at the month level. I could look at it 1 month at a time and be able to see all the different days that's coming in and out. So the rental calendar is maintained automatically just by maintaining the data inside of rental. So again, what winds up happening is that if we do wind up with returns, you can do manual billing. So if I wanted to bill for a time in advance, like let's say I wanted to bill through the end of the month, even though it's not there yet, I could come and say I want to bill through the end of the period, and then just go ahead and hit OK, and it's going to go calculate everything that that needs to be billed. And then from here, you can see once it's calculated everything that needs to be billed, it shows me the billing cycle, the end dates. It'll actually show me the last time it's been billed, and then a draft document number. So if you wanted to edit a document manually, you can actually go in and drill into a document and edit the draft before you accept it. Again, standard SAP. This one is one of those ones with the rental kit that we were talking about before. So it knew what the parent item was and then all of the items that were in that kit. We can do summarized billing, where I can go through and I can check this off and be able to group multiple bills together, or I can just create the individual billing documents directly. So through this process, you have the ability to do that. As we mentioned, you have the ability to do the automatic billing in the beginning, so you can skip the manual altogether. The exchange, the return. The benefit is that you're able to keep track of all of the rental movements in and out, to be able to automate the billing, to have the billing happen based off of different price lists, to calculate the prorations, and to really make it easy to manage your rental fleet.